Welcome back into the Sean podcast. I myself am Sean Usher. This is Sean Cummings. We're back again to give you our amateur opinion. What you got for the people today, Sean?
Hey, what's up and welcome back, football family. It's the same two guys. It's the same two amateur opinions that you've come to know and love. And if you're new to the show, welcome. Come on in, take your shoes off, stay for a while. You know, it is Austin 316 days, so stop by the fridge, grab a cold one, but use a coaster. We're not savages up in here. Come on.
Speak for yourself. Coaster smoker. This is comfy, raggedy sweater day. I'm in that mode.
We got no dress code here. It's fine.
Yes,
totally
indeed.
fine.
So, lots of big news been happening lately. We got some stuff going on, some stuff to check out. First one I'm going to start with, and we've been saying it. I told people all last year. Now, if you don't know, me and Sean, we live very close to the Chicagoland area. And today, we're going to start with a signing I know a little bit about. And that would be Andy Dalton going to the Chicago Bears. And I get it. You got QB issues. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky's gone. Not that he was really all that good when he was there. You got Nick Foles still, who you traded a 4th-round pick for. That didn't work out. So now you're going to, try out Andy Dalton. Because you made the playoffs. You're kind of out of the QB range for the draft. And I'm going to tell you right now, you better hope Andy Dalton loses. Because he ain't the guy. He ain't going to get you to the promised land. Maybe he does better for you guys than the Cowboys. I know the Cowboys had a lot more issues than Dak Prescott. But Dak Prescott had that team looking a lot better when he was in there in the same squad that Andy Dalton had. So, I'm just saying. I don't see it. But I thank you, because by you guys signing Andy Dalton, you give us a 4th-round comp pick. I'll take it. What's your thoughts on this one, Sean?
You know, we're doing a little segment later on about who are some early winners and losers of this legal tampering free agency period. So I'm going to hold on to those thoughts until we get to that. You want to go through them now?
Let's start this segment now.
Let's
do this.
We're jumping right in the deep end, because for me, when it comes down, I broke teams down into 3 different sections. I either broke them down as winners of this early period, losers of this early period, or it's too early. We don't know yet. And something to keep in mind is, all of this is very early. So one thing, we don't know what hiccups or complications are going to happen between now and the time that these players can actually sign their contracts. Who knows? Maybe there's a failed physical that complicates things. Maybe somebody pulls a player version of what Josh McDaniels did a few years ago. We don't know what that looks like. 2, we don't have all the details for these deals yet since they're not signed. So when we're talking about dollar amounts here, it might be maximum value. We don't know what that cap hit looks like. And 3, there's still plenty of off-season left. I mean, there's a lot of time between now and when the regular season starts. And there's certainly a lot of time between now and when we find out who's going to win the Super Bowl, Packers. So there's a lot of time here. A lot can really be played out in these next few months, almost up to a year. But for me, the Bears fall into that category of losers of this early period. Now, there's a couple reasons for it.
Tell them why.
I got a few reasons lined up for you. 1, you place the franchise tag on Allen Robinson, who really doesn't have much interest in returning to the club. Now, I can see if you're going to trade him, but if you're going to do that, you better make that soon while his value is still high and while there's still some of the, shall I say, marquee wide receivers still on the market.
Galladay's still out there.
Exactly.
Juju's still out there.
Exactly. Trade him while it's hot. Trade him while his value is really high. So, I mean, you have a player who doesn't necessarily want to come back, and the idea of Russell Wilson, I'm sure, sounded very appealing to him.
That's what I was thinking.
And I heard that the Bears put together a very competitive offer package to Seattle for it. for Russell Wilson, but they had no interest in trading him. Not at this time, at least not to the Bears.
That's the word
So,
they said.
so what's Allen Robinson thinking? With okay, we have Nick Foles, we didn't get Russell Wilson, and now I just see in my Twitter feed that we just are going to sign Andy Dalton.
Yep.
So that's the first one. You slapped a franchise tag on a wide receiver who really doesn't want to be there. So that's really risky business you got going on. 2, you re-signed Cairo Santos, your kicker. Now, I get it. He's probably one of the better kickers that you've had in your roster since Robbie Gould. I get why you want to keep him. I mean, on the surface, it looks like a 5-year deal worth $16 million, but pretty much there's 2 voidable years on that, which really breaks it down to a 3-year, $9 million deal, which, isn't too bad, but how much consistency has he really shown over the past couple of years? I get last year was a good year. And I guess the Bears saw something that they really liked in him last year, and they're like, you know what, we want to bring this guy back for 3 to 5 years because he did so well. He didn't blow it in the playoffs.
He's not a doinker.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, yeah. Yep. You're only going up. So, me as a football fan in general, it's like, okay, you're prioritizing a kicker over all this, and your kicker's not really that good.
So no, honestly, with what Andy Dalton brings you in terms of upside, you might as well brought back Mitchell Trubisky. I'm just saying.
Yep. So here's my third point. Allen Robinson, Cairo Santos, and now the trifecta of great moves this offseason concludes with the underwhelming quarterback decision by Ryan Pace. And it's not just one, it's a series. It's a pattern of underwhelming decisions at quarterback. Because if we think back to the very beginning, we had Mike Glennon, who signed a pretty big contract, but really it broke down to a 1-year, $18 million contract.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah. Those are my tater tots. You traded up one slot to draft Mitch Trubisky when you still had Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes on the board. And I know we've talked about this in previous episodes too. You're moving up to draft somebody because you liked his character, and character is good. I absolutely get that. But he had 1 year starting football at UNC, and UNC is not a football powerhouse, right?
Not yet. Not yet.
But certainly not the time that Mitch Trubisky was there.
Oh, no.
No.
I'm a UNC fan, like
Exactly.
if anybody knows me. And I would have said, when I saw it, I asked my Bear fan buddies, I'm like, what's going on? Because I had a 3rd round grade on my guy. Like, maybe it'll work out. But, like, Mitch needed to sit.
Yeah. I mean, you think at UNC, he was behind, was it Marquise Williams?
Marquise Williams.
He was behind Marquise Williams for 2 years. You couldn't unseat Marquise Williams? You had to wait until he was gone until you had your shot to start.
True.
For me, that just didn't look good when I'm trying to find a prospect. But then going and continuing with Ryan Pace decisions, he traded for Nick Foles and that big contract, what he had
Fourth
left.
round pick. A 4th round.
And threw a 4th round pick for that. And then here we are with the most recent news that he has agreed to terms with Andy Dalton, 10 million for 1 year, which isn't bad.
But how much did he get paid in Dallas last year?
I know. But
About
you're
$2
figuring $10 million for a quarterback who could start. It's not that bad of a deal, but it's just underwhelming. But I guess at least now they can say we have a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback behind center. So as a Packer fan, I'm really enjoying seeing this. As a football fan, I can empathize with you Bear fans who are wondering, what the hell is Ryan Pace doing?
If this is one last little thing for the Bears, we gotta move on. We're gonna talk next. We're gonna segue into more losing quarterback issues. But one more thing for the Bears, Bear fans, go out and look at Andy Dalton's passer rating in outdoor weather. Just check it out. I'm just saying. Anyways, moving on to another team that's losing. They've been losing since last year. considering, what the anniversary it is. And this is a team that just went out and signed Tyrod Taylor for 16 mil. It's 16, right?
It was, let me double check that. I don't think it was, I think it might have
Is
been
it 12 or
12. I
16?
think it was like a 10 to 12 range.
Either which way, you got Deshaun Watson there, who's unhappy, and you go and sign Tyrod Taylor. This is not a good look. This looks like there could be a deal coming in the very, very near future.
I don't fully agree with that. I don't think it means a deal is imminent because Tyrod Taylor.
I said looks like.
Tyrod Taylor could be a very capable backup because they don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun. Because if Deshaun ends up sitting out this season, they keep him on the roster, but he sits out, they got to have somebody play quarterback. And I mean, they're not going to bring Josh McCown back, or
It's
they could.
Not a good look.
I think it's insurance policy. Literally, one way or another, it's insurance policy for him.
This is not bold and confident.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. You heard the David Culley interview last week where he completely fumbled the interview. See what I did there? Football pun this time. When he was talking about Deshaun Watson. And I don't know how or why the Houston leadership said, you know what, let's have this guy go on any type of interview and talk about our quarterback situation, because it seemed like he was just bouncing around like, Deshaun's our quarterback.
Is there any way that you turn this into a win?
For trading Deshaun.
That's still a loss.
Well, at least you get something with the loss. At least you get draft picks, potentially players in return.
It's just still a loss.
Oh, no, this whole thing was a loss. Oh, guess what today is? Today is 3/16. Not only is it Austin Day, but today is the anniversary of DeAndre Hopkins getting traded to the Arizona Cardinals.
This is what I'm saying. All right. Let's talk some happiness here. I mean, I don't know how much happiness it is, considering who it is. And we're going to bring out the major winner of free agency so far. You know who that is.
I have my idea of who's a major winner.
Well, who do you think it is? I'm sure we're on the same page.
Now, if it's major winner as far as attacking free agency, it's got to be the evil genius in that Northeast. It's got to be Bill Belichick in the New England Patriots.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
First, let me get it. First, he brings Cam back, and then he's like, you know something? We saw what Cam does well last year. So what are we going to do? We going to help Cam out a little bit. But on top of that, he's like, I need to help my defense a little bit too. Go ahead, Sean, take the stage.
Yeah, so you bring Cam back, and then you're thinking, you know what? To get this defense up and running, we're going to sign Matt Judon. We're going to take him away from Baltimore. Now this, let me tell you, at least from what I've seen from Belichick, very uncharacteristic, right? This doesn't fit his MO. He normally waits out that first maybe week or two of free agency, and then he starts going for those veteran deals. The guys he can get on the cheap who still have value, still have quality left in them. How often do you see Bill Belichick really attack free agency on the first day or two, let alone the first week or two? This is something that's so unusual, and I'm actually enjoying it. I'm liking it. The more he signs players, the more I'm thinking Belichick is back, right? It's almost like he got his own stimulus check and he's going out shopping now. But instead of shopping out a store, he's just shopping for players and free agents. So
there you go. You're like Oprah out there.
Yeah. When was the last time that Belichick paid somebody like fair value, let alone overpaying for them? And he gets Matt Judon. It's a 4-year deal, and I think it's going to be $54.5 million. So you're breaking it down, annual average, a little bit over 13.5. Man, great move. You need a pass rusher, but wait, there's more. He goes out, and he gets. This Safety from Philadelphia, Jalen Mills, to agree to a 4-year, $24 million deal. Start bolstering that secondary. But he's not done there. And actually, I think this was probably one of the first moves he made was Miami defensive tackle Davin Godchow. Signed him, defensive tackle, $16 million over 2 years. Like this, these are things that you don't see Belichick doing. He doesn't spend money.
Guys coming back.
Right. Plus, he's got players like Dante Hightower coming back. He's got Patrick Chung coming back. And that's just on the defensive side of the ball. And he's like, you know what? Let me build up that offense, too. So he re-signs Cam, gets him back on a 1-year deal. That's what, $14 million, which is still pretty good. Yeah. Trades back Trent Brown. I mean, clearly in buy mode that we were talking about last week, buy low. Signs Jonnu Smith, 4-year deal worth $50 million. But then he's like, you know what? You know what's been successful for me in the past? That 12 package. That package where I have 2 tight ends on the field at one time.
Not just him,
but
it's also been successful for Cam.
Now, this is what really blew my mind. Seeing Jonnu Smith, you're thinking, man, Smith is going to have a good year. Cam Newton passing to him. He's in Belichick's offense. If you're looking into fantasy football, it's like you're going to buy on Smith this year. You're absolutely going to do it because there's potential. But it's a good thing that drafts don't happen this early because earlier Tuesday morning, Bill Belichick decided he wanted to agree to terms with another tight end on the market and arguably the best tight end on the market. Hunter Henry steals him away from Los Angeles Chargers and any other team that wanted him. And he ends up getting Hunter Henry for a 3-year, $37.5 million deal. So pretty much he's paying tight ends $12.5 million annually. I never thought I'd see the day.
It's okay. It's okay. He realized who needs receivers when your quarterback doesn't throw to him anyway.
And he brought in some receivers too. He's like, Nelson Aguilar, you had a good year with the Raiders last year. Come on over. $26 million 2-year deal. Come on over. I got you. And then he's like, you know what? That Kendrick Bourne guy from San Francisco, he's pretty good too. $22.5 million for 3 years. Come on over.
Player.
Come on over. See, now that's kind of a Belichick move that you're looking for, right? You're looking for one of those. Everything else, like signing Judon, Smith, Henry, those are like, whoa, this is a new Belichick.
So now, Josh got to do his job.
Cam's got to do his job. Cam needs to be healthy for the full season in order for all this to work. But you know what this makes me think of? Like when I'm seeing all these moves, I'm like, is Bill Belichick really in desperation mode? Like, did one losing season in a long time really just snap and he just went crazy? But you see, he's filling holes with free agency here. All those holes he's filling in the first couple of days, and it makes me think. The New England Patriots have 9 picks in this draft. I don't think Bill Belichick is going to be making 9 selections. Something tells me that he is going to plan a trade up to draft a quarterback in the first rounds.
Another uncharacteristic.
Exactly. And I'd love to say my sources told that, but literally I have 2 cats next to me sleeping, and those are my sources.
Yeah, they might talk to you.
Hey, they might. They may have a connection with Bill Belichick and his dog. Who knows?
Let's drive down the interstate a little bit to a team that I wouldn't say is winning or losing. This team, they made some moves, and I mean, I guess by the sheer nature of making moves, they're not losing. So we might say they're winning. But they could turn into a big winner soon if they pull off a huge trade. And I'm talking about them New York Jets.
New York Jets are positioning themselves very nicely this offseason that we really don't know what they're doing. With the moves they're making, you can see them keeping Sam Darnold. Maybe they trade back in the draft, add some weapons that way. Or you can see it go a whole different direction where they get rid of Sam Darnold. They draft someone like Zach Wilson, number 2, to set up the future. There's a lot of directions you can go. Or they could trade for that fella in Houston who really wants out, Deshaun Watson. And they're setting it up good for him. Who did they bring in? They got Corey Davis, and I really enjoyed that. I love that move. I think Corey Davis, he may have been drafted a little high when Tennessee took him at number 5, but he started showing that potential.
He started to develop.
He
He
did.
needed time.
He did, but I think the hard part was he was drafted so high, and the expectations along with that were so high. He had a hard time living up to it, but we saw him living up to that, and now he's getting paid like it. So now he's got to continue producing, whether it's for Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Deshaun Watson. Now the New York Jets have a number 1 wide receiver. Now it makes it more appealing. So if you're Deshaun Watson sitting there thinking before, I've got nobody to throw to, now you have Corey Davis.
Also, the reason why I like the Corey Davis signing is you also have Denzel Mims there, who, yes, is a similar receiver, but that's not a bad thing. Corey Davis can help Denzel Mims with his development, and now you're looking for more of that, small, twitchy guy. Maybe get an athlete in there like Florida's Tony.
Ooh. That would be a nice pick at the beginning of the second day. That'd be some good value right there.
With all that said, New York wasn't done there.
No.
They got some help on the other side of the ball.
They did. They ended up agreeing to terms with former Cincinnati Bengal edge rusher Carl Lawson. Now, I think this is a huge loss for Cincinnati. And I think we were talking last week that, Zach Taylor didn't bring Carl Lawson in. Zach Taylor didn't bring William Jackson in, so he's not going to have really any need to feel like he has to keep them around because they're his guys, so to speak. So seeing these guys walk away in free agency, not a big deal, but I think Cincinnati's losing here anyways. New York Jets are getting a good edge rusher with Carl Lawson.
Very good. Very underrated.
Very good. They are. They also ended up signing Jared Davis, another linebacker. Now, Davis can be good, just don't put him in coverage.
Well, I think he was poorly coached, personally.
That could be. And now you have Robert Saleh. He's a good defensive coach. Mm-hmm.
Now, moving over to a team that I think is losing, personally. You mentioned them Cincinnati Bengals. So, they lost some... Stop. So first, from my buddy, Matt Stuenvall, who is a Cincinnati fan, he already mentioned they're losing because they didn't sign no offensive linemen. 2, they replaced good players on the defensive side of the ball with players I don't think were as good. How about you tell us about those players?
Absolutely. I agree with Matt that they definitely missed out on the offensive line help. I was expecting to see Cincinnati open up their pocketbook for at least one of those top-tier offensive linemen that were available. You're thinking Joe Thuney. You're thinking Corey Linsley. Anybody who can help keep Joe Burrow safe and upright, I was expecting to see, but it didn't happen, and that was really surprising. So they're really missing out there, which means they really got to target that in the draft or later in free agency, whatever that might look like for them. But when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, they let Carl Lawson walk. Now, Lawson went to New York on a 3-year, $45 million deal. So they're pretty much paying him $15 million a year. They replaced him with Trey Hendrickson from the New Orleans Saints for 4 years and $60 million deal. So they really said, Carl Lawson, you're not good enough to pay $15 million a year. So we're going to let you go. But Trey Hendrickson, we want to pay you $15 million a year instead. And I really don't like this because you're paying the same amount for someone who may not be as productive. Now, Hendrickson put up, good sack numbers last year.
But it was 1 year.
It was 1 year, so it's a very small sample size. But what makes it misleading is Hendrickson had Cam Jordan on the opposite side of him. Now Hendrickson's coming in as the number 1 pass rusher on Cincinnati, but he doesn't win as many of those battles with the offensive line as Lawson was winning for you.
And he's going to get double teams.
And who is eating those double teams in New Orleans? Cam Jordan. Now he gets to eat them. I'm not a big fan of this. I don't like this for Cincinnati, but maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe they're planning on adding another pass rusher. Maybe someone like Arizona's Hassan Reddick later on in free agency
We'll see.
to
We'll
create
see.
a tandem. But I don't think Trey
Well-
Hendrickson by himself is going to do it.
Let's get to the other two missteps, in my opinion. So they let go of William Jackson, and they bring in two corners. Two corners that neither of them are as good as William Jackson. No, I know one of these guys. You know, being a Cowboys fan, Chidobe Awuzie. Very solid player. Got issues turning his head around, but you know, that's neither here nor there. He's solid, not great, and he's had injury issues. Just, you know, I would have paid William Jackson. And then the other one,
Mike Hilton from division rival Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Hilton's probably going to be more of your slot cornerback. They're paying him $24 over 4 years, so you're giving him $6 million a year to be a slot corner. I mean, that's individually, it's a pretty good move. Mike Hilton's a good cornerback, but
right.
when you're adding up all the moves so far that have taken place, it's not inspiring to be a Cincinnati fan right now.
No. And you mentioned the team earlier who is winning, and that would be the Kansas City Chiefs. Just with the one signing, that's all they need to be winning.
You know, when I had my categories, I put Kansas City in the too early to tell category.
No, that's winning.
No. Now, Joe Thuney was a good signing, right? You're paying $80 million over 5 years for him. Now, is Kansas City going to keep him at guard? Because that's a lot of money that you're throwing at a guard. For me, when I look at it, they let Eric Fisher go. They let Mitchell Schwartz go. So now they're missing their offensive tackles, both starting tackles from last year. Are they planning on having Thuney kick to the outside and play tackle? If so, I would like that move. I would.
We'll see how it goes.
But if you're paying him $80 million over 5 years to be a guard, I'm not sure. I'm not as sure.
We'll see. Now, we're going to move on to a team that's losing. A team that's losing by, it's not that they're not trying. They're just not getting there. And, you know, speaking of offensive linemen moving on, well, there's an offensive lineman from this team that moved on. There's also a defensive lineman that this team liked that just really wasn't into them, but he was into their division rival. I think you know which team I'm talking about.
Who are we talking about?
You know I'm talking about them Green Bay Packers.
Oh, Green Bay Packers. Yeah, for right now, like, clearly I'm a Packer fan, right?
Let's talk about Dalvin first.
hat,
Let's talk about Dalvin first.
glass. Yeah, that is a nice pickup by the Minnesota Vikings. That is a really good pickup. It does kind of make me a little envious, a little jealous that they ended up landing him. I know it's somebody that the Packers were trying to get at the trade deadline last year, but it didn't go through. It didn't work out. And then they had a chance at him with free agency, but apparently he must not like the state of Wisconsin or the Packers because he decided to sign with Minnesota. It's
Yeah,
a
who
two-year
rubbed him the wrong way?
$22 million. I don't think Green Bay would have offered him as much. So,
Yeah, the Cowboys were interested in. They weren't trying to break that type of bank either.
no. I mean, could he be
Not for a
worth it?
two-down player.
He could be worth it, but it just wasn't in the pocketbook for either the Cowboys or the Packers. So now the Packers not only don't get him, but now they get to face him twice a year in a
And-
Mike Zimmer defense.
With facing him, you kind of lost somebody
We
who
sure
would have
did.
helped with that.
We sure did.
Where'd that man go?
Corey Linsley. That fella is long gone. I mean, he definitely left the state. He probably got tired of the cold winters. Just kidding. He ended up going to the Los Angeles Chargers, and
Good move.
they definitely were willing to pay him. It was $62.5 million over 5 years, so average annual value is coming out to about $12.5 a year. he definitely deserved it. He's been such an anchor on that offensive line in Green Bay for so many years, and now he gets to do the same thing for Justin Herbert. So I think immediately, Justin Herbert's a big winner in all of this. He gets Corey Linsley. He even got Matt Filer from Pittsburgh Steelers, right tackle. They end up grabbing him on a 3-year, $21 million deal. So I like what Los Angeles Chargers, I like what they're doing to give that support to their second-year quarterback. It's something that Cincinnati didn't do. These were players that Cincinnati could have gone after. So very interesting. But are we coming back to the Packers? Can we share some good news for the Packers?
Go ahead.
All right. Good news is we got Aaron Jones back. 4 years,
This is true.
$48 million. It's something to be excited about on the surface, but then more I think about it, I'm like, man, we got him for 4 years, 48. Not that I'm complaining about that, but running backs have a short shelf life to begin, and he's really got to stay healthy for this deal to pay off. But I have confidence he can stay healthy.
Here's the thing. This is not... I have problems here, but it's not with signing Aaron Jones. Because Aaron Jones does a lot for you in your passing game.
Mm-hmm.
He is not just a running back. The problem here is, last year, you drafted a running back who does not catch the ball, is not great in pass protection, in the second round. What is this nonsense? What is the point of that? Especially if you're going to re-sign Aaron Jones. Like, stop.
And that got me thinking, because my thought process was, what was the whole point of the 2020 draft for the Packers? Because if we revisit the first 3 rounds, round 1, you trade up to draft Jordan Love.
Okay. Time will tell.
I'm speechless, right? Time's going to tell. But you just saw Aaron Rodgers put up arguably one of his best seasons in winning his third MVP.
That's what he did. He said after you.
Sure did. He sure did. Motivation for him. I hope it continues. I really do. But you're thinking, Jordan Love didn't even see the field last year. Not for one single snap. Whenever any backup quarterback was on the field, it was Tim Boyle, right? He was third string. You don't draft a quarterback in the first round and make him your third string quarterback. So, you already know how I feel about that draft pick to begin. So that's the first round, In my mind, it's a waste, at least for the short term for right now. And then I think round 2, we drafted A.J. Dillon. And we talked during the draft last year, and I thought, this is too early to draft A.J. Dillon. I thought 2 round was a little rich. They could have gotten him in the 3rd. That would have been better value.
4th.
Exactly. A.J. Dillon ended up being running back 3 on the roster. Now, did he show some potential? He sure did. When he got his playing time toward the end of the season, you could see that potential. You can see what he's capable of. He's going to add the thunder to Aaron Jones' lightning. But then you're right. Why do you draft a running back in the 2nd round if you're thinking about keeping Aaron Jones?
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And that leads me to the 3rd pick. And the Packers spent their 3rd round pick on Cincinnati tight end Josiah DeGuara, who saw the field.
Tight end is being generous.
He's a tight end fullback mix. He's like that do-it-all guy. Yeah, H-back's a good way to describe him. He saw a little bit of time as a rookie, but he missed a lot of the season because of an injury. And I'm thinking, you had Robert Tonyan, and we saw what Robert Tonyan did last year. He put up a career year. You never would have expected it from him, though. So I hope he repeats it. That would be fantastic. Green Bay's got him back. I mean, he's a restricted free agent. They put that 2nd-round tender on him. So Green Bay will be able to match or get a draft pick in return. But
we'll see what happens.
He's put up a good year. And then you drafted Jay Sternberger the year before that, who was already a young tight end with potential. And I'm thinking, you draft a quarterback in round 1 when you already had an MVP quality quarterback. You draft a running back in round 2 when you had Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams on your roster. And you got to think they got to bring at least one of these guys back. And they did. And then you draft a tight end H-back in round 3. And how much is really a fullback used outside of San Francisco? So what was the point of the Green Bay's first 3 draft picks? What was the point?
You don't ask me, bud. But we're going to move on.
Please do. Please do.
So first, we're going to jump around the U.S. real quick. Sorry. We'll Woo! Swallowed down the brown pipe there. We're going to go to New York. Back to New York. This deal, I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's a win for the player. He's a good player. Is he a great player? But Leonard Williams, he had a really good season. He's been really good for the Giants. But is he worth that contract?
Yeah, that ended up being a 63 million over 3-year deal for Leonard Williams. Huge payday. And surprise, guess what? He drops his positional file or his positional grievance with the league.
Of course.
Because he just got paid $21 million per year, which is definitely enough to make anybody drop that positional grievance. So you're absolutely right. It's a great deal for the player, for the team. Yeah, we're going to find out real soon. I know when we were doing our franchise talk a couple of weeks ago, thinking, who would we bring back on the franchise? I think we were both talking about, was it bringing them back or re-signing them? Yeah. I just didn't expect it to be for this much. Franchise tag was going to, franchise tag they decided was going to cost them 19, and they just decided to pay more for it. So New York's paying to keep that great player. They lost Dalvin Tomlinson, so they really had to do everything they could to keep him long term.
Okay, going to jump out to the West Coast. Seattle just stole a cornerback from a division rival. What's his name? Othello Witherspoon from San Francisco goes to Seattle. Then we got Jason Verrett staying in San Francisco. And then we got Bears Castall. Had a good season last year and is getting paid this week. How about that? Leonard Floyd staying with the Rams.
I'm kind of surprised by this one. Not with the Rams keeping him, but with the Rams keeping him for 4 years, $64 million.
Woo.
Last I checked, which was earlier today, I was at Over the Cap looking at where the teams were as far as the cap goes, who's still over the cap. And last I checked, the Los Angeles Rams were still over the cap by about $37 million. And then you got a deal.
Dirty.
Average annual is going to be $16 million. We don't know what that cap hit looks like this year, but you got to imagine it's like at least $5 million or something like that. So you're thinking, okay, well, that puts them at 40 over the cap, 42. How are they going to get out of this? And I'm very curious because the league year starts tomorrow at 4 Eastern, 3 Central time. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen between now, Tuesday night, and Wednesday afternoon. Are they going to trade somebody? Are they going to start cutting people? Or are they going to have people restructure? We've seen a lot of players who've taken what a signing bonus or what a bonus would have been. They transferred over to a signing bonus. They add voidable years. So teams are getting very creative this offseason, and it's really fun to watch.
All right, moving down, or not really down, but more to the desert. We're going to go to them Raiders. What do we think of those Raiders moves? Made a couple.
They got Yannick.
Yep.
You need a pass rusher. You absolutely need a pass rusher. Yannick has the skill, potential, and age to be a great deal. They got him $26 million over 2 years, so that's a nice pickup for John Gruden and company. One thing that I don't like about the Raiders, though, is that you lost like 80% of your offensive line. I mean,
maybe, I don't know. Gruden's that dude who does nonsense that I don't understand.
Yeah, they lost 60%. They traded Trent Brown back to New England. They released Gabe Jackson. They released Richie Incognito. And then, today they just released Rodney Hudson as well for no 60%. Reason. Yeah, so that's 80% of your starting offensive line.
Miller.
You just got rid of.
Colton Miller is the last one.
He was drafted by John Gruden, I think. Gruden and yeah.
But Brown was signed by them. So, hey.
It's going to be really interesting. I know Kyle Long, former Bear offensive lineman, came out of retirement. He was in Las Vegas these past couple of days. He left without a deal. It doesn't mean that a deal can't get done because his dad, Howie Long, used to play for the Raiders back when they were in California.
True. Now, before we get... Well, no, let's jump down there. Let's just jump down to Florida.
We're just jumping all
Yeah.
over the place.
We got two teams in Florida. One is winning. The other one is, I don't really know what they're doing. They're doing some weird stuff. So I hope they figure it out because I got them making the playoffs. So let's talk about that team first. Them Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think? I don't know.
Jacksonville, with the deep pockets they had and with the talent that was available in this offseason, I was expecting Jacksonville to be a little bit more aggressive when it came to signing talents. Because
Players.
for
Yes.
me, that would have been a better sign of we want to win now, but maybe the pressure is not on Urban Meyer to win now. Because you're thinking the biggest signings that they had were Shaquille Griffin from Seattle, and he was arguably the best cornerback on the market. And they ended up landing him. I said
William
arguably.
Jackson,
I said arguably. $40 million over 3 years, which is a pretty good deal for a cornerback one. And then another big signing they had was Marvin Jones. They ended up locking him up for 14.5 over 2 years. So he's going to be a veteran wide receiver that's going to be there for your new shiny toy, Trevor Lawrence, to throw to.
All right, before we get to the other one, I'm going to jump to another area of the country. The team that will not be named, they made some moves. And, I mean, for me, one of these moves is a Band-Aid. He's always been a Band-Aid. But he's like, you know those cheap Band-Aids that you get? That were like, you put it on, and by the end of the day, it's peeling.
5 seconds later, it's peeling off. You go to wash your hands, it's falling off already. Yeah.
Like it looks awesome at first, and you're like, yeah, I got a Band-Aid. It's good. And the next thing you know, by the end of the day, you're like, man, that Band-Aid's half off. That's how I feel about Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, there's times he looks fantastic. But eventually, all that luster just wears off.
Yeah, you're thinking Ryan Fitzpatrick was signed to a 1-year deal. He is obviously going to be a Band-Aid for the Washington team that shall remain nameless, who released Alex Smith. So you're thinking it's definitely a Band-Aid. Could they
trading up? Like,
maybe
what are they doing?
No one knows. No one
and then
really
William
knows.
Jackson signed there, and that's a good signing. But I mean, your defense can't do everything.
No, it can't. But you gotta think, if we can blur some lines here real quick, for fantasy purposes, Ryan Fitzpatrick is good for any Washington skill player.
Oh, it's gonna be fun.
And namely, I'm looking at Terry McLaurin, who's gonna be like a buy candidate.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm going
It's
in
gonna be
for
fun.
him.
All right, let's move on to another team that's winning, and a favorite, most likely gonna be a favorite to win the Super Bowl next year. Them Tampa Bay Bucks. They got everybody back. I mean, not everybody yet. They're negotiating with Sue as we speak, but they pretty much got everybody back. But Leonard Fournette has his market, I guess. But I mean, Ronald Jones had a good year.
Yeah, and let's go through some of these Tampa Bay activity, because they weren't a big player. They weren't a player at all in free agency.
But that's not the point.
They did a great job of getting their own players back. You franchise Chris Godwin, which makes everything else happen. Tom Brady agrees to a restructure to free up some cap space. Yeah, that's what made it happen. That really that's the domino that did everything. And then even before all this started, you have Levante David, who was probably the first domino to fall. Right away, they signed Shaq Barrett when the tampering period began, even though they could already negotiate with him because he was still under contract. You bring back Rob Gronkowski, and you have these talks about Leonard Fournette, and apparently what I'm hearing is he likes New England, and there's a running back in New England, James White, who kind of likes Tampa Bay.
But also from what I'm hearing, it's Brady really likes Fournette. Just saying.
I think Brady's opinion would be enough for for Tampa Bay's general manager to keep him. I mean, look
Yeah.
what he did with all the other players. Everybody got brought back. I'm sure they're going to continue negotiating with Ndamukong Suh. They're going to continue
Yeah, we gave
negotiating
you
with
a
everybody
lot.
else. Yeah.
Now, we give you a lot of information there, but we're going to move on to our draft series.
Ugh,
You
you
know.
take a breath.
Got a couple little bit left, so we're going to keep it working. So, Sean, you're going to be up first this time. And let's see, let me just get myself in position. I do apologize to the people for taking so long to get in position.
And now a word from our sponsors.
I wish we had sponsors. So this week it's going to be defensive tackles or interior defensive linemen, however you want to place it. Sean, let's go with your number 5 guy. Who's your number 5 guy?
So, you know how I had a hard time last week looking at those edge prospects? I felt very similar this week. You see some depth that's available with the interior defensive line, but there's not a lot available at the top of the draft that really makes you excited, that makes you think this is a first-round pick. And a lot of these players may end up having productive careers, but I wouldn't expect that to happen in year 1, though. These are players that you may have to wait a year or two. They may have to go through some struggles early on. Then they're going to pay off for you. And really, I only think there's going to be one player who's going to get drafted in the first round, if one even gets drafted at all. All that to say, coming in for number 5 for me, from Washington, Levi Onwuzurike. Guy's got a great combination of athleticism and length that's going to help him become a good run defender. He's got a quick first step that can allow him to be a potential difference maker. He needs to improve his pass rushing for that next level. He's had flashes that show how great he can be. We haven't seen him put it all together yet. He opted out of the 2020 season, which may end up hurting him because he probably could have been higher on my list. Not that my list really matters much at all, but he could have been higher on my list had he returned for another season and gotten some more tape and see really how much those extra snaps could have done for him.
Now, I like him. I'm actually going to talk about him a little bit later. So, we're going to go move on to my number 5 guy, who I know is not on your list. He's, I think, my only pure one tech, but this dude's a monster. And it's a Lim McNeil from North Carolina State. And this guy also monster, just beast. Like, you could just see him in his tape just manhandling fools. The question is, what does he give you as a pass rusher? Because I don't know there, but I do know this is the type of guy I want on my team. I hear he's got great character also, and he's just a monster. So if you have issues stopping the run, this is the dude you want.
Yeah, I hear he has one of the best first steps in this entire class, which is impressive. This guy is 6'2", 320. That is, yeah.
Oh,
He could-
insane athlete.
He could be a complete nose tackle for you. Absolutely.
So let's move on.
All right. So Sean already spoiled that McNeil is not on my top 5 lists. So
Yes, he did.
don't be surprised when you don't hear his name later on. He actually came in at number 7 on my list, though.
Travesty.
Well, yeah, I kind of feel similar to the edge rushers. Given more tape on any of these people, they could have gone up and down, and depending on what you're
McNeil's
looking
one
at,
of those that did benefit from playing this year.
he did. But it's all looking at, just like the edge rushers, what are you looking at in the position? What do you want your player to do? But
All right.
Anyways,
so let's move
moving
on to your
on.
number 4.
coming in at number 4 from USC is Jay Tufailey. This guy plays aggressive football. He's consistently getting leverage on opposing offensive linemen. He's got that combination of athleticism, quickness, and a burst. He needs to add more power at the pro level. Now, he's a type of player who's going to command a double team in the run game. So he is probably going to be, actually 2019, he was one of the most disruptive defensive tackles in the nation. He even thought about declaring after that 2019 season, but he opted to come back to USC for one more season, only to opt back out because of COVID.
So here's my thing here. It's the same thing with what we've been talking about with a lot of players here. He has not played football in a full year. I mean, not competitively. And how much does that hurt him? And the problem here is, like, players like Micah Parsons, it's okay. Because you don't have that other guy who fell. The problem with the defensive tackle spot, and the problem with these guys like Tufailey and I will never pronounce Levi's last name correctly.
Onwuzurike.
The problem with them is you have Marvin Wilson. And Marvin Wilson looked like a guaranteed top 10 pick in 2019. And now they're talking about maybe third round. And that's an issue. And now he makes you scared of other defensive tackles that didn't play when he did.
Absolutely. I think we were talking last week when it came to the edge rushers. We had Gregory Rousseau. Could one more year have hurt his draft stock? Could one more year have helped it? That's a
Could
big
he have been
risk.
exposed?
Exactly.
Now, all that being said, Jay Tufailey is also my number 4 player for all the reasons you said. But I did want to get that out, is without playing, we don't know. And this is the weird thing about the defensive tackle spot, is the guys who did play hurt the guys who didn't.
Yeah, you're thinking Jay Tufailey, if he was able to dominate the Pac-12 offensive line, but when you're going to the NFL, it's going to be much bigger, better competition than what he faced in the Pac-12. An extra year could have done good.
Imagine if Marvin Wilson opted out. We might be talking about these guys differently.
Yeah, we may have Marvin Wilson a lot higher, because that 2020 hurt him for me. He could have been in my top 5. He was out.
But now, all right, so he's way down on my list. But I heard something about Marvin Wilson. He had gained something like 25 pounds to play this year. He needs to shed that weight. If he sheds that weight and plays what he was at before, maybe he'll be that beast again.
Yeah, you're thinking if he gets the right motivation, that team that takes him in the 3rd or 4th round is going to get a steal out of him.
Now, on to your number 3 guy.
Number 3.
Not on my list.
My number 3 guy is clearly not Marvin Wilson.
No. Not mine either.
If there's any Ohio State fans in the house, you're going to like this next pick. My number 3 guy, Tommy Togiai. He is probably going to be the best run defender of this group, and it's very impressive considering this past year was really his first year as a starter. Previous 2 years, he was serving as a rotational piece, but he's got that combination of high strength and a high motor, so he's constantly moving around. From what I could see, he's very violent. He's able to win at that point of attack. He's going to start as a 2-down run defender. So
now, I'm going to say this. He's not on my list. But like McNeil, he might be one of the people who gained the most by playing this year. And that almost didn't happen for him. This kid made a lot of money from people in the Midwest there going to bat for some football.
Yeah, even if it's 6-7 games, however that regular season was, they end up going to the championship game. Like, he's going to make his money as that run specialist. He's not going to be terrible in pass defense.
Oh, no, not at all.
But you're not going to expect to see those sack numbers from him. What he's going to do is he's going to eat those double teams, and he's going to force openings for other defenders. He's going to collapse the pocket in your quarterback, which is going to help his teammates get their sacks. So he's not a liability in the pass game, but he's going to be much better in the run game.
See, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know who this guy was until I watched, what game was that? I watched the Clemson game. all of a sudden I'm like, oh, who's this guy?
Who's this guy?
Who's this guy disrupting everything?
This guy should be in my top 5. That's what you should have been telling yourself. Yeah.
Messaging my buddy Matt, like, why didn't you tell me about this guy whose last name I can't pronounce? But that being said, my number 3 guy is Levi.
Onwuzurike. I got you. Don't worry.
There we go. You got me. Really like Levi. Think he's a solid player. Everything you said, he's got quickness, got a nice burst. The one thing I will say is he's a little undersized, so he may be scheme specific.
He might be. Maybe he's one of those players who maybe lines up a little bit further on the outside. Almost like a defensive end. Yeah.
All right, so moving on.
Number 2.
I think we have the same number 2s and number 1s.
Really?
So that may be anticlimactic, but hey, what can you do?
Well, we'll hold the people in suspense. Maybe it's not the same order. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see.
But checking in at number 2 for me is Davion Nixon from Iowa. Fun fact, he went to Indian Trail High School in Kenosha. So for all of our Midwest people in the Wisconsin area, close to the Illinois border, he went to high school in Kenosha. He's got a really high ceiling. You didn't see or hear a whole lot about him because he went the JUCO route and then he transferred to Iowa. But even before he transferred to Iowa, Alabama was trying to recruit him, so that says something about him. He's got to be pretty good if you get Alabama coming after you. But he stayed firm with Iowa. Now, he is not even close to being a finished product. He's only got 1 year of big-time college football to his name right now. He is going to get better in the pros. He is powerful. He does a great job of holding his grounds. His coaches and his teammates all rave about his football instincts, but you can't expect a lot out of him in year 1. He needs time to grow. He needs time to develop. You can't just throw him in there and expect the same production in the pros.
Now with this guy also gained a lot of by playing. He helped his stock a lot. But you're right, not a finished product. This guy's probably has the highest upside of anybody on the list. Like, I mean, in 2 years, this guy could be a dominant player in the NFL. Now, also, just to say, he is also my number 2 guy. So there's that. So that means our number 1 guy's the same. So without further ado,
just go ahead and show it. We have Christian Barmore from Alabama. There we go. Similar to Tommy Tuggy, this was his first year as a full-time starter. 2019, he is a rotational player. Now, the term rotational isn't bad. I mean, he was a playmaker when he was in the game. It just took him some time to crack into that Alabama stacked defensive line rotation, that starting lineup. Now, 2020 season started off a little bit slow. He had a little bit of a lingering knee injury that slowed him down in the beginning of the year, but he progressed as the season went on. A few of those games, especially those late in the season, he was playing just out of his mind, but it wasn't consistent through the entire season. He uses size, strength, power to overwhelm blockers, which can help him become a very dangerous interior pass rusher. He needs more reps though, especially at the pro level. There are going to be growing pains. Whoever drafts him, they've got to be aware you're going to go through growing pains with him. You can't draft him in the first round and expect him to be a Pro Bowl All-Pro right away. You can't expect that production immediately. It may be a year or two until he really starts taking off. Now, he may not be considered as good as previous Alabama defensive line products like Quinnen Williams, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, but he is the best defensive tackle in this class. So for me, this was an easy one to have him number 1. No. For me, it was Barmore, bar none. See what I did there?
Look at you. Now, here's the thing with Barmore. Just to say, who are you getting? Are you getting the first half? Or are you getting the second half? Because the second half's a top 10 pick. First half, that's a 4th round pick. His first half was worse than Marvin Wilson. So it's just like, where are we going with that? But that being said, I think this kid can develop. I think he is more the second half. I do think a lot of these kids did get, let's say, affected by the off season and everything that went on. So there's a lot of these kids that are going to match up more with how they finish than how they start. And then there's going to be some that just fell through the cracks. I do think that this class is actually better than it looks. There's a lot of players in this class that are going to fall to the 2nd, 3rd, even 4th round that should be drafted in the 1st and 2nd round. So there's going to be a lot of teams getting really good players that could develop really nicely.
Yeah, I agree. I think Christian Barmore is going to be the only one who could be drafted in the first rounds. You know, given a larger sample size, Nixon could have snuck into that first round. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Barmore go off in maybe middle first round, and some tackle needy team toward the end of the first is thinking, well, we don't want to wait on this guy because he's not going to be here later in the second. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Nixon go late in the first round, but I'm really only counting on one Barmore going.
Or with the development of defensive tackles and how it happens a little bit slower than other players, they think, well, we get that 5th-year option.
Exactly. And for some of these players, that could be a really good thing depending on how your draft board shakes out.
Very true.
Because you're thinking, if I get them for a 5th year under contract, you know, years 3, 4, and 5 are where you're going to want to see that productivity. These guys are going to start off slow, just like the edge rushers we talked about last week. They're going to start slow. And the team that drafts them has to be aware of that, which is why we probably won't see any edge rushers in the top 10.
Well,
It's going to take time.
You can see comparisons between a lot of these players and past players. Like Aleem McNeil. What is the big difference between him and Dexter Lawrence? Let's see, like, honestly. And Dexter Lawrence was a 1st-round pick.
He was.
So, but, all right. So we did have another segment set up, but we ran a little bit long in our free agency segment. So we're going to save that other segment for you, pocket that a little bit. Got some good content there. And we'll get you that next week. So it looks like we're coming to the end of the line to this week. Sean, what's your words of wisdom this week?
Ooh, words of wisdom. Man, I'd say file taxes, but I did mine over the weekend, so I don't need to remind myself anymore. No, somebody out there needs to hear it. You know, the draft is coming up soon. Don't let the draft distract you. Get your taxes filed beforehand so you don't got to worry about it, okay? We don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. Come on now. File those taxes. TurboTax, really easy. Plug TurboTax.
There you go. Even though we don't get paid by TurboTax, but
not a penny, no. But maybe, huh?
Yeah, Turbo, you listening? Real easy. Now, on mine, I'm gonna get a little plug too. They right down the street from where I live. John Deere. Let us know, because you know, my words of wisdom are, we got spring coming up soon. When you're mowing your lawn, watch out for rocks. Them dangerous.